Brilliant stuff.
We're here. I was panicking. Yeah. You kept throwing me out, but anyway.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I do believe we are now live for our next session. It's going to be a really, really interesting conversation. We've got some fantastic speakers here to give their advice and their expertise. I'd just like to introduce Monique, who is a model, influencer and advocate of disability travel, which is fantastic. Lynn, who's the managing director of Enable Holidays, and Richard, the co-founder of Include Travel. Just to say before we sort of start the conversation in earnest, if everyone has any questions or comments, please use the chat function, and we'd love to kind of engage and speak to you on that and put those to our panelists. I thought it would just be a nice idea for everyone to start with. Perhaps we'll start with you, perhaps Lynn, to go around just the room and just everyone to introduce yourselves and your backgrounds and where you're coming at from this point of view. That would be great. Lynn, if you'd like to start.
Okay, great. My name's Lynn Kirby. I hate to tell you, but I've been in travel for 50 years now. And I launched Enable Holidays in 2004, having recognised that there wasn't a travel service for disabled people. We set about by holding focus groups initially throughout up and down the country to identify what it was that the disabled community were looking for, what they were disappointed with, etc. Out of that, we produced a fully accredited auditing process, which we now still use to audit all of the properties that we feature. We either have seen the properties, our team have either seen and audited the properties ourselves, or our overseas partners have done the same. We know everything from toilet height, go into a great amount of detail. Whenever possible, we have partners in overseas that offer holidays for disabled people, and what they have to do in any circumstances. And they're also great because they help us put together in-resort programs and excursions and things like that are totally suitable for the disabled market. As a tour operator, we arrange everything for our customers, from airport assistance, guaranteed adapted rooms, transfers, excursions, equipment hire, whatever the customer needs. That's what we do, and that's what we're good at. When we first launched back in 2004, it was predominantly beach holidays to Europe, but how that's changed, it's changed to include activity holidays, hot air ballooning, scuba diving, wine tasting, you name it. We try and arrange it for our customers. But not only that, the consumer is now travelling further. We don't do just Europe anymore. They're going to the Galapagos, they're going to the Ecuador, they're doing tours in India. They really are adventurous, and we really enjoy providing those holidays in conjunction with our overseas partners. I've got a great team here at Enable Holidays. We love what we do, and looking forward to whatever we can do to help you. We're willing to do so, and always at the end of the phone, whether you're booking with us or not, we will do our best to help you. So that's me.
Fantastic stuff. And Richard, if you'd like to introduce yourself and talk about Include, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, I'm a veteran like Lynn. 46 years in travel. I broke my neck when I was working when I had ski business in the French Alps, so that led me to look at the arena that I've been in for the last 28 years. So I've had specialist tour operators, but really now focus on B2C in the high end of travel, and also much of our activity now is actually B2B, because what we recognized is that it's fantastic having disability specialists and people who are striving to try to make travel accessible, but the challenge we have is that we have a global supply chain with very little understanding of what this is about. So whilst there's no shortage of expertise with people like Lynn and myself, no shortage of customers. This is actually the last untapped market. 1 in 6 of the world's population has a disability. Every single one of our existing customers knows someone who has a disability. And the only reason why it's stayed as it is now, which is regarded as niche, is that the industry hasn't embraced it. And they haven't embraced it for lots of reasons. Fear being the primary one, fear of getting it wrong, fear of not understanding, fear of not knowing where to start. So, so we have a B2C travel company, which is high end, like Lynn. It's wherever anybody wants to go, whatever continent, whatever their requirements, we can make it possible. But it's challenging. It's challenging because we need the supply chain to do a couple of things. One is to educate everyone. And educate and understanding the scale of opportunity. But the most important thing is we can do this. We can do this as an industry. We can do this. And actually, we have to do it. Morally, ethically, commercially, and also legally. You know, we are required by quality legislation to provide the same level of service to everyone. And right now we don't. So I think the message that I get across today is that this is such an exciting opportunity. It's fantastic what you're doing, Tom, TTG, in bringing this to the fore. For too long, it's been talked about in the press that we must do something. Isn't this a great market? It's time. It's time to do something. It's time for the industry to embrace this. Everyone, tour operators, DMCs, representation companies, tourist boards, everyone doesn't sit on one person's desk. Everyone within an organization needs to be inclusion aware, accessibility aware. Today's a great start, but it's just the start. We know what we're doing. We want to impart that information to the rest of the industry. So I think the journey starts here today.
Absolutely, and well said there, Richard. Definitely, I'd like to bring Monique in at this point. To talk about your background. I know you obviously you travel very frequently. Monique, you were just back from New York a few weeks ago. In terms of for anyone that doesn't necessarily understand what you go through necessarily when you travel and the experiences that you have, would you mind kind of just talking us through kind of what your travel journey is like at the moment?
Yeah, so I travel a lot now for work, both for modelling and for dance. So none of that would necessarily go through a travel agent because I'm traveling with a group and we're going different places around the world. So I've even had experiences now traveling for the first time with the dance company where I'm sort of apologising straight away that it's going to be a bit more difficult to arrange everything for me because I'm a full-time wheelchair user. My wheelchair is pretty heavy, pretty big, and no matter what I do all the stuff that I get asked, fill out all the forms for the weight of my chair, this, that, and the other. I always have the issue on the other end at the airport, at the everywhere to say that about my wheelchair. It's not this, it's not that. They need this information, so I genuinely have to carry a booklet around with me for my chair. It's sort of the anxiety as well of booking somewhere and them saying it's wheelchair accessible and getting there and it's got like a couple of flights of stairs or a couple of steps, or where it's wheelchair accessible, I have to like go around the back and stuff like that. So for me as a guest, a consumer of travel, it's for the travel industry to sort of understand that when things are said and when things are done and put in place, they need to be put in place properly. And it's for the reasons of people like myself to be able to just travel like anyone else and not have to stress and worry every time I travel, which happens all the time. So yeah, that's sort of my experience. So I have had some good experiences, and I always tell my friends like certain airlines and stuff that are really, really good, and to go with them, even though sometimes it does cost a bit more. But I always say you get what you pay for. So yeah, it's sort of from my perspective, it's sort of trying to help the industry understand the barriers that are still there, even though there are things in place, but they're not, in my opinion, in place I wouldn't say correctly, but there's just like no proper legislation. There's nobody to actually go and say, yes, this is wheelchair accessible, or this is accessible for somebody who needs extra needs, etc. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, thanks very much, Mick. That's really really interesting stuff. And perhaps I'll throw to Richard at this point. Actually, I know you yourself and Lynn have worked in this field for a number of years and are real specialists here. Do you feel as if the environment is changing to be more inclusive and more open to this? That the industry is changing, like you mentioned there, Richard, in your introduction, that you feel like there's still a severe lack of product and severe lack of movement on that front.
To be honest, since I entered the space in 1997. I'd say a huge amount has not changed. The options are still extremely limited. It's either specialists like Enable Holidays that Lynn runs. It's very kind of enterprising individuals who work very hard to facilitate their own travel. But generally, the options, actually, I'd say they've diminished, largely because a lot has moved towards online, away from towards volume, away from personal service. The future does not lie with specialists like us. It doesn't. If you look at all the specialists around the world collectively, we don't carry more than 5,000 passengers a year. 10,000 max. That's not an industry. That's a cottage industry. The future lies with every single stakeholder in the industry. And there's absolutely no reason why any tour operator cannot make some adjustments to what they do. It doesn't mean to be accessible, inclusive to everybody. That's simply not possible. And most inclusion's got nothing to do with physical barriers. It's got to do with the fact that there are still brands out there who will not guarantee accessible rooms. The vast majority of hotels around the world, apart from the kind of 3-star functional Premier Inns of this world, do not make visible their provision, even when they have accessible rooms. It's incredible. We surveyed 40 luxury hotels last month around the world, and not a single one of them could give me, as a travel professional, preferred partners with these hotels, could give me information on demand, which says it's not even in the conscience of the industry. So yes, there's amazing things happening around the world. There's great infrastructure changes, but that's not what this is about. This is about inclusion, not accessibility. Inclusion is the total experience, not just staying in a room. And but if it's not visible, if people cannot find the information, if you can't go into a travel agent and do anything other than a kind of trip to a beach holiday, then people perceive there's no market to be had. Totally wrong. This is the last untapped market. This is the last untapped market, and we have to recognise the future lies with every stakeholder, not with specialists like us. We can influence change, we can educate, but we cannot create the market which is yet to be created.
It needs a truly industry-wide push on this.
And no exceptions. Every stakeholder, educate, embrace it.
And then obviously we have a lot of travel agents on the webinar today who are perhaps dipping their toe for the first time, or who, as Richard said, is are afraid of maybe perhaps getting it wrong sometimes with their terminology or their language. Or what advice would you say, or sort of perhaps encouragement to them to on where to start necessarily when they have clients who are after specialist needs, or who are looking to attract and help more clients to grow in that area?
Okay, first of all, we treat every single customer the same. Let's recognise what this is about. It's got nothing to do with disability.
Oh, Richard, sorry, I could just ask that question to Lynn as well.
Yeah.
As well, that's fine. That'd be great to hear your point.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Lynn, would you like to take that one?
I think the first thing that the agents need to recognise is not to be afraid. We're all human, and embrace as much as you possibly can. Ask as many questions. Actually talk to the disabled person rather than the person that's pushing the wheelchair. And they are exactly the same. Their needs are exactly the same, but they want to go on holiday. So you ask them the same holiday question, and you get to know them and you understand them. And then once you've passed that first barrier, if you can get that first holiday and get it right, and we will help you get it right, because we will help you to ask the questions. You have to ask, sometimes you have to ask intrusive questions, and quite often the agents will allow us to ask the intrusive questions rather than ask them themselves. But I can guarantee that once you've got past those barriers, the components that they need, which again this is the foundation of long, because they won't go anywhere else. I'm sure Richard will echo that, because we've had people that started off in Tenerife that are now going to safari in South Africa. You grow with them, and their confidence grows with you because you know what you're doing and you're delivering what they want. They don't want to be treated differently. They want to be helped to enjoy their holidays. And I think that's paramount, really.
Fantastic. And Richard, I guess you would echo Lynn's points there.
Absolutely. If I had a specialist tour operator, and I think what I learned was actually the vast majority of disabled people do not want to be marketed to as disabled people. You know, they want travel companies that are dealing in destinations and dreams, not disability. And it's actually the barriers that we put in place that disables customers. So it is recognizing that only 17% of people are born with a disability, which means that everyone else acquires it. Some through trauma, like myself, but mainly through aging. So there's a vast community of people who've travelled all their lives and travelled very well, but they stop. They stop because they lose confidence that they can do this. They're looking to the industry to give them confidence, and right now they're not getting a lot of that back. So I'll go back to the same point again. We need to educate ourselves about what this is really about. Lynn has proved what we do shows that actually, if we work together, we can make anything possible. You know, clients do very quickly expand their horizons. There should be nowhere out of limits. This is. I'll go back to again. We can do this as an industry, but it requires all stakeholders to engage, because otherwise it can't get. Otherwise, it will not grow.
And just to your points there, Richard, we've had some fantastic comments in the chat as well. I think someone says here that I totally agree. Some of my most adventurous customers have, accessibility requirements. That just goes to show, just because you have a certain necessarily thing with your life doesn't mean that you should be impaired or restricted in any way, which I think is brilliant. You made a good point about representation there, and I want to throw to Monique, because I know Monique was part of the fantastic Celebrity Cruises all-inclusive photo project, which I think was last year, which was an amazing campaign, really, which has showed some fantastically inclusive imagery and marketing content that was shared widely and was shared sort of free to use. Monique, can you talk about that and how that made you feel? And also, you mentioned some of the companies that are doing things right in terms of representation. How does that make you feel, I guess, when you see yourself properly represented and included in the whole travel world, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, very quickly, I'll firstly say I'd never been on a cruise before, and it was my wish to go on a cruise, and I'd been to travel agents, and every time I tried, the accessible rooms had already gone, and I was literally told I'd have to book like a year in advance to be able to go on a cruise. And with the friends that I have, it's more like a 3 week maximum of, oh yeah, I've got the money, let's do it, let's book. So that could never happen unless I went on my own. So but on top of that, I never saw any sort of representation of myself as both a disabled or a black woman advertised within like these lovely cruise brochures. So to be able to work with celebrity, and as you said, to do the campaign of all inclusive, it was called, was amazing. And yeah, it was quite inspiring that it wasn't just myself and other minorities that was in front of the camera. Also, they used minorities behind the camera, and we also had a disabled photographer, which was amazing. But for that to be given out freely, so that no, whether travel agents, tour operators, had no reason to be able to say, well, we can't represent, or we can't show representation because we don't know where to get these models and this, that, and the other. And it was just there, was amazing. And through that, I'm also hoping that more people have the confidence, like myself, and other minorities, to have the will to want to just travel wherever they want to, and not feel like that isn't for me, because for years I felt like that. I will say, even though that was a great experience, one of the things that happened, and it's kind of sad to know, but I kind of knew would happen, but was still surprised at it because of everything that it was all about, was I realised that the staff themselves didn't seem to be trained on inclusion and disability, i.e., I ordered a cocktail, I had my money, and they spoke to my PA, over me. Spoke to my PA about, how much it was going to be and this, that, and the other, and a couple of other things, and I brought it up, and yeah, they realised that though they did diversity training, that didn't seem to include disability, as well. So yeah, working with celebrity, and from years ago, I've always wanted to do, more towards travel and making sure people with disabilities, it was easier for us to be able to travel, whether we use an agent or whether we just did it on the internet. And yeah, I think I'm finally, hopefully, doing that by doing things like this and being able to speak to everyone, and just sort of giving a real situation of somebody with a disability of, yes, I'm able to book and this, that, and the other, but even then, even when it's possible, getting to the other end, it's not as easy or as fluent as if, for example, my sister who doesn't have a disability travels. But yes, also there are some companies that have done a great job. I mean, flying wise, I will always rep. I don't know if I'm allowed to say airlines
I
and
think so.
stuff.
Yeah, if it's a good
Okay.
news story, yeah, we're definitely not the BBC. We're not state sponsors. All good.
That's good. That's good. But I always say to my friends, if it's possible, to fly with Virgin, because they literally just treat me like, I wouldn't even say VIP. I feel like I'm not extra special, whereas other airlines, they're like constantly like, "Oh, are you okay?" and this, that, and the other, even though they still get it wrong and break my chair and stuff like that. But with Virgin, they're very much. I felt like I was treated like everybody else, but I had that extra attention to make sure that my wheelchair was where I needed it to be, this, that, and the other. How do I turn it off? This and everything. So I always recommend like Virgin, to a lot of people for flying. And I know that we sort of had a discussion prior, and I remember I went to Dublin, I think it was, for work last year, or no, beginning of this year. And it sounds really bad, but I was very frustrated at the people at the airport, because I was telling them that they had to put extra tags on my wheelchair for all the information. And they were actually telling me, no, it's already in the system. And I know that we sort of spoke about just having a system like that, where I put the information in because I get told to, like weeks, months beforehand when I'm traveling. And that information should just be available. And it was in Dublin. And that has never happened. I'm 37 years old, and I've been traveling since I was about 3. And that has never happened to me before. So, woo woo to Dublin Airport.
Oh, it's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing those very much real world, situations of when things go well and they don't. And that's a really interesting point. And we'll in the next sessions, I know we'll speak about staff training as well, about how necessarily things are done some well, but they could be done in other ways. I think we've just got a few minutes left. I just wanted to go just quickly around the group here, just ask maybe perhaps, I know it's difficult to give sort of a pearl of wisdom or to give anything quite succinct to such a wide topic and to something, but perhaps maybe Lynn, if we start with you, I know we mentioned as well about where agents can start to really kind of just get to grips with this topic and help their clients. But is there a particular piece of advice that you would want to give to any agents listening today that you could kind of help them with to kind of start things out, or to really kind of, yeah. Oh, yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. I go back to what I said. Don't be afraid about this. Just embrace it. See it for what it is. And we at Enable, we've got a bit of a training manual thing that we can help you with. That we do send. We work with agents in doing some online training and just to help them ask the right questions and you know, my biggest thing is embrace it. Embrace it because it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's a wonderful feeling that you've made somebody happy. There's nothing better than getting that response back from those customers. I didn't think I could do this, and they even vote thing. It takes booking holidays to a completely different level, in my opinion, and I would encourage every agent that's watching, listening, to embrace this opportunity. And it is an opportunity, both rewarding and commercially, because once you have those guests, they stay with you forever.
Fantastic. And Richard,
but do call us, and we'll help you as much as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much expertise there for agents to use. And I guess, Richard, perhaps the last word to yourself. I know you mentioned.
I totally agree with Lynn. This is all about a training, education. Just make an offer to anybody who's in the room who's watching this. We've created the first accreditation of accessibility and inclusion in travel. It's called IncluCare, and we have modules for travel agents, tour operators, DMCs, hotels, everyone. So I make an offer to anybody who's watching today. If you'd like to undertake one of these modules, then just contact us. There's no charge. The quicker that we can spread the knowledge, get the wheels of understanding going, then in a year's time would have a very different conversation to the one we're having now. So I think this is just the start. There's a takeaway. Lynn's offering assistance. We're offering assistance. It's there. Come and get it.
Awesome. I think well said. I don't think you could have summed it up better, really. I know everyone's here to be involved and to join the conversation and to offer support, and I think that's such a lovely kind of a positive way to finish. I know we definitely don't think we're going to solve, us being TTG, think that we're going to solve everything in a few hours of an afternoon, but I feel like it's a great place to start. So thank you all, Monique, Richard, and Lynn for your time today. I will just introduce our final session, which is our destination showcase, where we'll be hearing how destinations across the world are offering an inclusive experience and get some insider knowledge on to help your clients enjoy a holiday without limits. So that's our final session in the next room, which I think will be automatically moved over to in a moment. So again, thank you very much to Monique, Richard, and Lynn for their insights. And let's go to our last panel of the afternoon.